Hey there, this is Sean from the Punched and Played podcast. Today I'm going to be taking a look at Trickerion Legends of Illusion. This is a fairly complex game for 2 to 4 players in which everyone's taking the role of an illusionist trying to win the most fame points to eventually win the elusive and mysterious Trickerion stone. So let's jump into the game, I'll show you how to set it up and how to play.
When you're ready to set up the base game of Trickerion, you'll lay out the main game board, making sure that the Dark Alley expansion is not an available location. You can also ensure that you're using the correct side of the board by looking at the turn counter track. There will only be 5 spaces available in the base game. At the top of the game board, just above the downtown area, you'll lay out all of the trick cards that are at the level 1 and level 16 fame threshold. That's notated at the bottom right-hand corner of those trick cards. You'll remove all of the cards that have the level 36 down here at the bottom. Those will only be used in the advanced game. In the market row location, you will put the 4 basic components in the buy area, notating that these are the 4 resources available for purchase at the beginning of the game. Just above the theater location, you'll prepare the performance deck. This will consist of different playbills that you'll be performing in the various theaters. However, in the base game, you will not be using any of the red Magnus Pantheon cards. You'll only be using the orange Grand Megorian and the yellow Riverside Theater cards. To prepare the performance deck in the base game, you will take 2 of the orange Grand Megorian cards and 2 of the yellow Riverside Theater cards, placing the yellow ones on top of the orange and placing it near the game board. Based upon the number of players, that will determine how many performance cards start on the track. In a 2-player game, there will only be 1 card available. In a 3-player game, there will be 2, and in a 4-player game, there will be 3. Also keep in mind that there are corresponding numbers on these 2 slots showing that in a 4-player game, as these cards will eventually shift over, you will fill in all 5 slots in a 4-player game. You will fill up to the 4th slot in a 3-player game, and in a 2-player game, you will only fill up to the corner slot. You will use the Trickerion Stone token to keep track of what round you are currently in. You'll also make sure that the supply of component tokens, coins, and Trickerion shards are within equal reach of all players around the board. At the start of the game, each player will start out with 5 fame points. It's possible for you to lose fame points, that's why they give you a few to begin with. In a 2- or 3-player game, you'll have to restrict some of the action point slots on the board. You'll do this for all locations except for the theater and the workshop locations. To do so, you will take one of the unused player tokens and place it face down to block one of the 1 action point slots. So in this case, in a 3-player game, there will only be 3 spots available. In a 2-player game, there will only be 2 spots available. In addition to the main game board, each player will take a player mat and place it in front of them. If you're playing the basic game, you want to make sure the player mat does not have a cat symbol in the upper right-hand corner. You'll also choose which magician you'll be playing as in the game. So here I'm going to be the Great Optico, who is in the Optical Illusion class of magic, notated by that eye symbol. In the base game, you will not be playing with any of the magician powers. You'll place that card right there. You'll also take the corresponding Magician Advertisement card and place it near your game board. We'll talk more about that here after a while. You'll also take your set of trick and symbol markers to help keep track of which tricks you're performing on the stage. You'll also start the game with some components. Components are what you used to prepare your magic tricks. And there are different levels. So the basic components are like this. You've got glass, wood, fabric, and metal. 1 dot is there at the bottom showing you it's a value of 1. So I can take 2 value worth of components. So I can take 2 of these components in any combination I like, or maybe I could want to take one of the advanced components like this, which are at a value of 2. So I can take 1 level 2 or 2 level 1. I'm actually going to start the game with 2 fabric, which are at level 1 each, so that's my 2 value of components. And I'll place those right there. Anytime that you gain new components of the same type, you'll just stack them up on the already existing pile of that component type. Each player will also receive a Magician Workbook. This contains all of the magic tricks you can learn in the game in all the schools of magic. However, at the beginning of the game, you can only start with one of your School of Magic basic tricks up here on the first row. So I'm actually going to start the game with the Enchanted Butterflies trick, which is in the Optical Illusions school. Right here it tells me what components and how many of that component I need to be able to prepare this trick. Right down here, it shows me that's a level 1. In the base game, you'll be able to get up to level 16 tricks, but you have to have that number of victory points, or fame points in this game, to be able to learn that trick. This is where you're going to put your symbol marker to keep track of what symbol is associated with this trick. Over here, these boxes represent the number of preparations I can have of that trick. Since there are 2 overlapping boxes, whenever I prepare this trick, I can have 2 preparations. Over here in the middle, this tells you the reward you receive. So I would receive 2 fame points and 0 coins for performing this trick. You'll place the card that you learn right there, and you'll take one of your symbol markers, I'm going to take the spade marker, and place it right there. Because I started the game with the components that I needed to prepare that trick, I get to have a free preparation, which means I get to take 2 of my preparation tokens that are the spade tokens and place them right there. Again, since that had 2 preparation boxes, I can put 2 tokens on there for free. So that's a one-time bonus at the beginning of the game. If I didn't start with the 2 fabric, I wouldn't get those free preparations. You'll also take a set of assignment cards. These are the cards you'll be using to assign your different workers to different locations on the main game board. So you take 2 downtown cards, 2 of the market row cards, 2 workshop cards, and 3 theater cards. You'll also take your magician token. This represents your magician, which is worth 3 action points in the game. You'll place that token right here. You'll also start the game with 1 apprentice, and they are at a value of 1, so they're worth 1 action point. And you'll place your apprentice right there. You'll also get to start the game with a specialist of your choice. All of the specialists have 2 action points. So we've got the manager over here, we've got the assistant, and we've got the engineer, each worth 2 action points. Let's talk about what each of these specialists do for you, because they each have a unique special ability. The assistant, when you take the assistant, you'll take the assistant marker and place it right there. What the assistant does, when you start with her at the beginning of the game, you get to take an additional apprentice token and place it right there. Her bonus is that not only are you starting with an extra worker, but you don't have to pay that worker either. Notice that each of your non-magician workers require some payment at the end of each round. So each apprentice will cost you 1 coin, each specialist will cost you 2 coins. However, this apprentice doesn't cost you anything, so he'll work for free. If we look at the manager specialist, again, you'll take the corresponding specialist token. The manager gives you 2 extra spaces for components. And if you start with the manager at the beginning of the game, you get a bonus of starting with some additional components as well. So just like before, you can take 2 value worth of components. So for example, I could take 2 metal if I wanted to, or maybe I want to take a wood and a metal, that would be fine. Or I could take a level 2 component like this dove. So I'm going to take this level 2 component, put it right there. Her spaces are a little bit different. Every component stack that you have on there, you get to count it as if it has 1 more tile than it actually has. So while I only have 1 dove token on there, I actually count it as if I had 2. So that can be pretty powerful if you're wanting to start producing and preparing some more advanced tricks earlier in the game. The last specialist we're going to look at is the engineer. Again, you'll take your engineer token, place it right there, and what the engineer does is he will allow you to start with an additional magic trick. This does not have to be in your school of magic. It can be any school that you wish, but I'm actually going to start with the rabbit from the top hat trick. It's in my school. It tells me it's a level 1, so I can learn this at this point, and it shows me that I have only one preparation of this trick. Okay? So we'll place that trick right there. We'll take a corresponding symbol token, we'll take the heart, and we'll place it right there. Now I don't get the extra bonus of being able to prepare that trick, but what's unique about the engineer is that anytime that you prepare a trick, you get to add one extra tile to that preparation. So while pulling the rabbit from the top hat only has one preparation, whenever I prepare it on the engineer space, I get to add an extra one, which can be very powerful indeed. You'll also start the game with some coins. The first player will receive a total of 10 coins. The gold coins are worth 5, the silver coins are worth 1. The second player will receive 2 more coins, so they'll receive 12 coins. Third player will receive 14, and the fourth player will receive 16 coins. Each player will also start the game with a Trickerion shard. These are powerful crystals that can be used to give yourself additional action points in the game, and some more complex things in the advanced game. Now that we've covered the basics of the player board, let's take a look at what the different spaces on the main game board do. At the Market Row location, players can purchase and order new components. At the top is a pricing chart. It shows you that it'll cost you 1 coin for every basic component, 2 for every advanced component, and 3 for every superior component. At the beginning of the game, you'll start with the 4 basic components available for purchase. The different actions you can take in this space are the buy action and bargain action, the order action, and the quick order action. The buy action will cost you 1 action point, but allows you to buy 1 component of a particular type. But you can buy up to 3 of that 1 component. So for example, if I did the buy action, it would cost me 1 action point, I can spend 3 coins to buy up to 3 wood. However, I can also spend an extra action point to bargain. That will allow me to lower the cost of that purchase by 1. However, the price can never get to 0. So if I wanted to spend 1 action to buy the 3 wood and 1 action to bargain, I could get my 3 wood for only 2 coins. The other action you can do is the order action. It will cost you 1 action point to be able to order a component that will be available in the next round. So for example, if I wanted the saw component, at the end of the round, the saw will take the place of the glass component. If I move the saw here, for example, it would replace the fabric component. But those are not available for purchase until the next round. However, if there's a component you really need right now, you can do the quick order action. So for example, if I needed this superior lock component, I can make it available for purchase immediately by spending 2 action points. Typically that would only cost me 3 coins per component, but because I did the quick order, it will cost me 1 extra coin for each component I buy. So by doing the quick order, I can then do the order action as a separate action point to be able to purchase those at the inflated cost. However, at the end of the round, the quick orders do not stick around. They disappear and are no longer available for purchase. The downtown area allows players to hire new workers, learn new tricks, and to take coins. The dice are rolled every round to determine what resources are available. A result of an X simply means that that die cannot be used to purchase anything that round. Each of these spaces will cost the player 3 action points to activate. So if a player wanted to hire a new worker this round, it would cost them 3 action points, and only an apprentice is available currently. So if they wish to do so, they'd spend the action points, they'd gain an apprentice token, and they'd flip this result to an X, showing that they've already used that die. If a player wanted to learn a new trick, they can learn a trick from that particular school, which is the Spirit School. However, They can always learn a magic trick from their specialty school. So if I was the great Optico, I could either learn a spiritual trick or I could learn an optical trick. Regardless if I do what's on the die face or learning my own specialty trick, you'll always turn the result to an X, showing that that action has been used. Finally, you can go here, spend 3 action points to gain the number of coins shown on the die. So if I want to gain 5 coins, I'd flip it over to an X and instantly gain those 5 coins. Down here, those give you some ways to manipulate the dice. For 2 action points, you can turn the result of any die to whatever result you wish. So for example, if I really wanted to hire an assistant this round, I could spend 2 action points, flip that die to the assistant side, and then I can spend my 3 action points to hire that assistant if I wish. The other action here allows you to re-roll a die of your choice. So let's say I was really wanting to get more than 3 coins. I roll that die. Bad luck. I got an X. And that is essentially all the actions you can do at the downtown area. The workshop location is found on each individual player's playboard. Whenever you assign a worker to the workshop, you can spend action points to do a preparation of a magic trick. Remember, in order to prepare, you must meet the component requirement in order to take the preparation action. In this situation, I have the 2 fabric I need, therefore I am allowed to do the preparation action. There's a question mark in this space showing that it's a variable number of action points needed to prepare a trick. The trick itself will tell you in this space how many action points are necessary to do a full preparation. In this situation, Enchanted Butterflies only requires 1 action point to do 2 preparations. So by splitting that 1 action point, I can add 2 preparations to that card. Each specialist will also give you a special action that only they can do. For example, the manager allows you to swap the piles of 2 different resources. So for example, if I had a dove token right here, remembering that her spaces count as if I have 1 more of that resource. If I was really wanting to make sure I had 3 fabric at the end of this round in order to be able to prepare a certain trick, I could always use 1 action point to swap the locations of these 2 components. So now I only have 1 dove, and now it counts as if I have 3 fabric. The engineer also allows you to do a special action. By assigning any worker to the workshop, you can spend 1 action to swap the positions of 2 magic tricks on your board. Remember that whenever you do the prepare action to a card on his space, you get to add an extra preparation token. Finally, the assistant has an ability that allows you to permanently reassign one of your apprentices to her free apprentice slot. You get the bonus of having a free apprentice at the very beginning of the game. However, if you add the assistant later on, you do not get those rewards. So this ability is going to be fairly limited. But let's say, for example, that I had an apprentice on this space right here. For 1 action point, I can move this and reassign that apprentice to this space right here, which means that for the rest of the game, that apprentice no longer costs me any money at the end of each round. The theater location allows players to set up tricks for performances and to eventually perform those tricks on the big stage. This space operates a little bit differently from the other locations, mainly because it's broken up into 2 different regions. You've got behind stage and on stage. These locations are also broken up by day of the week. So Thursday performances, you get first crack at being able to perform your tricks, but you take a penalty for every trick you perform. You'll actually receive fewer fame points and fewer coins for every trick that you perform. And that will last for all other performances in which your tricks are performed. So getting first crack is great, but the penalty can be pretty severe. The Friday and Saturday spaces don't give you any bonuses, but the Sunday space gives you a bonus of +1 fame point and +1 coin for every trick you are performing. However, behind stage, you start seeing that things play out a little bit differently. On Thursday, every worker you assign here, they have more time to set up the tricks. So you get one additional action point for every worker you place there. On Friday and Saturday, you don't get any bonuses for setting up your workers there. And on Sunday, you actually have less time. So you actually take a penalty of -1 action point for every worker you put behind the stage. When you place a worker behind the stage, you're able to do one of two different actions. You can spend 1 action point to put one of your prepared tricks onto a playbill, or you can spend an action to move one of your tricks from one playbill to the other. So let's take a closer look at what the playbills look like. Around the edge of the board, you will have different playbills that are set up. These will shift every round, so eventually some of them will fall off the board. Let's take a look at the one right here. So playbills are set up with square and circle spaces that connect them. Whenever you want to place one of your trick markers onto a playbill, you'll have to spin the action and you'll take one of your markers that are prepared off your player mat and you'll place it in one of those square spaces. However, there are some placement rules. Let's take a closer look at these trick tokens. You'll notice that there are 4 different schools of magic listed in each corner. I'm playing with the optical school, so I must always make sure that the eye symbol is inside one of those circle spaces. That makes the placement legal. If I had other tricks of different types prepared and ready to go, I could spend an action point, say, to put my heart trick on here. Again, making sure that the eye symbol is set up so it's touching and connecting within that circle space, and that actually forms a link. A link occurs whenever the same symbol shows up inside of a circle space. In this situation, there's a Trickerion shard listed inside the middle of the space, which means I automatically get one of those shards and I add it to my supply. Anytime that you connect level 1 tricks as a link, you can either gain 1 fame point or 1 gold. Whenever you connect a level 2, a level 16 trick, you can either get 2 fame points or 2 gold. It's your choice. Now, other players can also add their tricks to the playbill that you've already started. In fact, they'll probably want to, because even if they're not the performer, they will be kind of a second act that kind of follows the headlining act, and they'll still be able to score points from their tricks. So, while Red may have had another heart trick prepared, they cannot add it to this playbill because they already have one set up. Because a magician will never perform the same trick twice, right? But the blue player, even though they have the heart symbol, it's a different trick, it's a different color, they're allowed to place that on here. If they were able to set it up this way, where they could connect the 2 chain symbols together, that's also considered to be a link. Even though the colors don't match, it still scores them the link bonus. There's no Trickerion shard within the middle of that circle, so they don't receive that. But since these are both level 1 tricks, they will still get the bonus of either 1 fame point or 1 coin. And whenever this is performed, they would still score the points and the coins from the trick they had on that playbill. So, we covered how to place tricks on the playbills. You've also got the option to reassign tricks to different playbills. So if you see yourself kind of maybe getting pushed out, you see an opportunity to kind of jump in and maybe get some points in a different way, you can spend an action point to move one of your tricks off of this card and move it on to another one, as long as you're following the same placement rules, making sure that your School of Magic symbol is within the circle. Let's use the following setup as an example of how performances will work. So no one went on the Thursday track. So Friday is locked down by Red, so they get the first crack at what playbill they want to perform. They choose this playbill, which has 2 of their tricks and 1 of Blue's. So whenever they perform a playbill, every trick that's on there will automatically earn their bonuses that are listed on the cards on the respective player's playmat. So every player will score points for their tricks. However, only the performer of those tricks will get the following bonuses. They'll get 1 fame point for every link that's on the playbill. So in this example, we've got 1, 2 links. So they'll get 2 fame points. If they had an engineer behind the curtain, they would get 1 Trickerion shard. They don't have that, so they don't get that bonus. They would get 2 fame points for having an assistant behind the curtain. When they performed, they didn't have that, so they don't get that bonus. However, they do have a manager behind the stage, which earns 3 coins for that performance. The performer will also get the bonus listed at the bottom, so this performer earns 1 fame point. Now it is worth noting that while you can spend Trickerion shards at other locations to get bonus actions, this is prohibited at the theater. Each round of Trickerion will be played out in various phases. The first phase will always be rolling the downtown dice. This will determine what workers are available for hire. The white dice will tell you what magic tricks can be learned, and the black dice will tell you how many coins can be gained. The second phase of the game is setting initiative order. This will normally be determined by the number of fame points that each player has. The player who has the fewest fame points will claim the top initiative space. The second fewest will claim the next space all the way up to the player who has the most points. However, this is actually skipped in the beginning of the game. Instead, it will be randomly determined which player will have initiative at the beginning of the game. To point out, it's also important to remember that if you're playing a 2-player game, you will only use the first and third initiative track space. Initiative not only determines the order in which players can be placed on the board, but it also determines how expensive it is to advertise. And this leads us to the third phase of the game. The advertisement phase allows players to place their advertisement poster on the initiative track to advertise, and that will bring more fame points in. The player in the top initiative track will be able to advertise for only 1 coin and gain 2 fame points. The person in the second place track will spend 2 coins for 2 fame, 3 coins for 2 fame, and the bottom track is 4 coins for 2 fame. Each player will assign their poster there, signifying that they wish to advertise during this phase. In the assignment phase, each player will decide where they want to send their different workers. You'll use the assignment cards to make those assignments. So for example, if I want to send my magician who's worth 3 action points to the downtown area, I would place that card face down. Perhaps I want to send my apprentice to the Market Row location to buy some new components. I'll place that card face down. And then finally, maybe I want to send my engineer to the workshop to prepare some tricks. I'll lay that card face down. Once everyone has assigned a card to the workers they wish to place on the board, everyone will simultaneously reveal their assignment cards. We'll then move into the place character phase, where we start putting those characters on the board. It's worth noting that you do not have to assign an assignment card to all of your workers. If you do not assign a card to a worker, that worker is considered to be idle, which means you will not be able to place them anywhere on the board. However, that also means you don't have to pay that worker at the end of that round. The place characters phase involves players assigning their workers to different locations on the board based upon the assignments they made in the previous phase. Let's use the downtown area as an example. Let's say that all 4 players had assigned one of their workers to the downtown area. So there's going to be a lot of competition for this space. This is where initiative order becomes very important. The player in the top initiative order gets to make the first placement on the board. So let's say that Red had initiative. They're going to assign their 3 action point magician to the 2 action bonus space right here. That will give them a total of 5 action points to spend. Let's say that the red player was really wanting to get an assistant. That will cost them 3 action points. So they'll take that action, they'll spend 3 points, and they'll take the assistant. That leaves them with only 2 points remaining. That's really not enough to be able to learn a new magic trick or to take coins. All of these spaces take 3 actions. They could re-roll a die or change a die result to anything they want, but that's really not going to help them. It would probably end up helping other players. So they may have another trick up their sleeve. In any location except for the theater, there's a space over here that shows you can spend 1 Trickerion shard to gain 1 action point. So the red player can spend a Trickerion shard, gain an extra point. That now gives them 3 action points left to spend. So that would allow them to go over here and take 5 coins, changing that to an X. The second player, perhaps the blue player, will assign their worker to the bonus +1 space. That gives them 3 action points because their engineer gives them 2 plus the 1 bonus. That's just enough to be able to get something from above. So let's say that they want to grab the coins as well. So they'll spend their 3 action points to take 5 coins, flipping over that die to the X result. Yellow would probably be the next player because they're next in initiative order. So they'll place their magician worth 3 action points on this 1 space. Now that gives them 4 action points, but maybe yellow is really hoping they could have gotten that assistant. So they can use 1 of their action points to re-roll that die. So they're going to take that die, re-roll it. Oh my gosh, they got exactly what they were wanting. They got the assistant. So now they can spend their remaining 3 points to hire that assistant, flipping that over to an X. And then finally, the green player, well, they didn't think things through here. They assigned one of their apprentice workers, which is only worth 1 action point. And this last space does not give them any bonus. So all they have is 1 action point. That's really not going to do much. If they had 2 Trickerion shards, they could cash those in order to take one of the actions above. But in this situation, it looks like green's going to be shut out because they simply don't have enough Trickerion shards to take any meaningful actions. As you can see, whenever a character is placed on the board, players will take their actions immediately. In the case of hiring a worker, you won't actually receive that worker until the return characters phase of the game. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in a second. It's also important to remember you can only have 1 of each type of specialist. So you can never have, for example, 2 assistants or 2 engineers. However, you can have 1 of each if you wish to have them. When placing workers in the theater location, remember that whenever a worker is placed on a particular track, that locks in that day of the week for that color. That means yellow could not come in and take this other Thursday space. However, they could start working on any of the other available days of the week. So in the case of assigning your magician for performances, unlike other worker placements where you take the actions immediately, you will not take the actions for performances until the next phase, appropriately called the performance phase. Let's use the following example for scoring the performance phase. We always resolve the performance phase in the order of the days of the week, always starting with Thursday and ending with Sunday. If there was a performer on the Thursday spot, that performer would choose the playbill they wish to perform. However, no one had anybody placed on that track, so there are not going to be any negative consequences for those tricks scored this round. Red is the first player to have a performer on the stage, so they'll choose the first playbill. So let's bring down one of these playbills and take a look at it. So in this situation right here, red has 2 tokens on this playbill and yellow has 1. So both red and yellow would score their corresponding trick bonuses that are printed on their trick cards. But only red would score the bonuses for performing, including any bonuses for links on the card, for having specialists behind the curtains, and the bonus printed at the bottom of the card. Now, it's also important to point out that because yellow has any workers in the Sunday track, they automatically get this bonus for any trick performed on a different day of the week. So while red gets the normal output, yellow will actually get +1 fame and +1 coin for this trick performed there. Now, blue did not have a performer on the stage, but they assigned their magician behind the scenes to kind of prepare and set up a trick to be scored on a playbill. However, blue will not perform this round. So the next performer will be yellow, and they have a full house behind the scenes trying to score some bonus points for having those workers behind the curtain. Let's take a look at this particular playbill here. So this playbill has both orange and blue on it. So blue will score points for their trick and yellow will score points for their tricks, also adding those Sunday bonuses to the 2 tricks they have on this playbill. They will also get the corresponding bonuses from the chart listed here. So let's say that blue went to the Thursday space as opposed to the Saturday space. Anytime you have any workers on the Thursday track, you will suffer consequences or reductions for the yields from your particular magic tricks. So while blue did not perform, they do have tricks on yellow's playbill. So let's look at this different example of a playbill. This has all 4 colors represented on this playbill. So whenever yellow performs it, yellow is going to receive the bonus for the +1 fame, +1 coin for every trick of theirs being performed. Blue is going to suffer the negative consequence for their trick, and they'll reduce their yield from that trick by -1 fame and -1 coin. Red is on the theater track, so they will not receive any negative or positive modifiers, but they'll still score their base point yields from their magic trick cards. Now green is in an interesting position. They don't have anybody in the theater, so they'll actually score the same yield modifier that yellow does. So they will get +1 coin and +1 fame because they have no one in the theater at the time. So that's very interesting, and it's important to keep that in mind whenever you're planning your strategy in the theater. The intern phase consists of 6 subphases, the first of which is paying wages. For each worker you assign to a task on the board, you will have to pay the corresponding wages. Your magician does not cost anything because the magician is the one paying the wages, so you can always place your magician for free. For each apprentice, it will cost you 1 coin for each one that you assigned, and each specialist will cost you 2 coins. So in this situation, I assigned 1 apprentice and 1 engineer. That will cost me 1, 2, 3 coins. For each coin that I cannot pay, it will cost me 2 fame points for every coin I cannot pay in wages. After you've paid wages, it's now time to return all the workers off the board and put them back on your player mat. During the return character subphase, this is a good time to start collecting any of those assignment cards that you used during this turn and put them with the rest of the cards you did not use. If you hired a new worker in the downtown area, during the return character phase, you get to add those tokens to your playmat. If you hired a specialist, you get to add the board extension at that period of time. So if I hired the assistant, I'll get to add her token onto this board. However, unlike the bonus that I received from the specialist at the beginning of the game, I do not receive that bonus at this point. So for example, at the beginning of the game, I would have received the free apprentice. But in this situation, I do not receive that bonus. I will actually have to use her special action in the workshop to move one of my apprentices from one of these paying spots to permanently reassign him here, so now he no longer costs me any money at the end of each round. You can have 1 specialist of each type. So if I had the engineer as well, I would hire him, put his token there, but I also do not receive the bonus of the free trick. If I didn't already have the manager, I would not receive the free resource on this token. You only receive those special bonuses if you choose that specialist at the beginning of the game. The next part of the in-turn phase is that orders will now arrive. So any orders that were placed will replace the corresponding square on the market. And any quick orders will be removed from the board. Performance cards will shift one space during the in-turn phase. Depending upon the number of players, that will determine how many slots are available in the performance track. In a 4-player game, you'll start the game with 3 cards on the track. So during this phase, we'll shift each of these cards over one space and draw a new card from our performance deck that we set up at the beginning of the game. As rounds continue, these cards will continue to shift over, drawing new cards to replace them. At some point, one of the cards will actually drop off the track. Any trick tokens that are on that card are simply lost and are given back to the player's supply. That card is removed, all the cards shift over, and a new card is drawn. So in a 2-player game, once all 3 of the available slots are full, this card will get removed, those 2 cards will slide over, and a new one will be drawn. So there will always be one more playbill on the track than there are the number of players. Any posters on the initiative track will now be removed and returned to the respective player. The last part of the in-turn phase is that the turn marker will be advanced one space. At the end of the 5th round in the base game, final scoring will occur. In addition to any points that have already been earned at this point, players will also receive points for the following. They'll receive 1 fame point for each unspent Trickerion shard, 1 fame for each 3 leftover coins, 2 fame for each apprentice, and 3 fame for each specialist. Whoever has the most fame at the end of the game wins. If there's a tie, whoever is higher on the initiative track wins the game. If you wish to play the advanced game of Trickerion, you'll want to flip the main game board over so it reveals the Dark Alley location. You'll take all of these special assignment cards and give them a good shuffle, organizing them into the different types of locations. These are going to be special abilities that are tied with those location assignments that you'll be able to acquire by visiting the Dark Alley. You'll also be able to go here to influence what prophecies will become active in the game. You'll start out by drawing 3 of these prophecy tokens. You'll set the supply of them next to that space right off the board, and you'll place those prophecy tokens right within that crystal ball. There's no active prophecy the very first round, but as you keep going, some of those prophecies will activate and will cause a special event to occur. In the back of each player's Magician workbook, there's going to be some information in here that gives all the details about what those different prophecies actually mean. So make sure that you clue each player about that information in the back of the Magician workbook. There's going to be some setup changes as well whenever you want to play the advanced game. First of all, you're going to take all of those level 36 tricks and add them to all of these stacks of tricks within that particular school and add them in those spaces right above the downtown area. You will also do a different setup of performance cards. Because you're playing 2 extra rounds in the advanced game, so for a total of 7 rounds, you're going to take 2 of the red performance cards, 2 of the orange, and 2 of the yellow, turn them face down, and that will be your draw deck for the performance cards. You'll also want to make sure that you take your Magician card and flip it over to the side with its special ability. On page 21 of the main rulebook, it has an appendix which explains what all of these special abilities do. Since you'll be buying new special assignment cards, remember you'll be starting with a different setup of assignment cards at the beginning of the game. You'll only have 1 of the workshop, 1 market row, 1 downtown, 2 of the theater, but you'll also get a Dark Alley card. You'll have to go to the Dark Alley to get more assignment cards to progress through the game. There are also 2 additional subphases that are added to the in-turn phase when you're playing with the Dark Alley expansion. First of all, you're going to move the prophecies. So whatever prophecy is in this position right here will now become the active prophecy, and all of these will move over, and you will draw a new token to replace that spot. Also, any special assignment cards that were used that round are discarded. So you do not get to keep your special assignment cards between rounds if you utilize them. All of your normal assignment cards, you get to keep those as usual. When you send workers to the Dark Alley location, you'll be spending action points to purchase new special assignment cards. The first one will only cost you 1 action point. The second one, and any one after that, will cost you 2 action points. You can also spend 1 action point to manipulate the pending prophecies. So by spending an action point, you can rotate these around to influence which one will become the active prophecy the next turn. Final scoring in the advanced game is a little bit different as well. In addition to any other points you've already earned, you'll still get 1 fame point for each unspent Trickerion shard, 1 fame for every 3 unspent coins, and 2 fame for each unused special assignment card still in your hand. Some of your 36th level tricks will also score you some bonus points as long as you meet the condition on that trick as well as the component requirement. Whoever has the most points wins. If you have the Trickerion add-on set, you also have the option of playing with Magician Powers. You'll use the side of the board that has the Trickerion shard track. You'll start the game with 4 of the 3 different point thresholds of Magician Powers. So just like magic tricks, there's level 1, level 16, and level 36. So you'll start the game with 12, but then you'll discard down to 8, keeping the ones that you think have the most synergy. In order to activate those cards, you must unlock the Trickerion shard slot. You have 4 of them. As you go up, you need 1, 2, 3, and then 4. So if I wanted to activate this one, I could do so during my assignment phase. If once I hit the 16 point threshold and I had the 2 Trickerion shards, I could activate this slot. However, if at any point I spend a Trickerion shard, maybe to get an extra action point, I no longer meet that condition, so I have to unlearn that Magician Power. When playing with this variant, you'll actually start the game with 3 Trickerion shards instead of 1. Also, at the in-game scoring, you will not score bonus points for each unused Trickerion shard. Because you're using from powers, you do not score any extra points.
So there you go, that's everything you need in order to play Trickerion Legends of Illusion. So I'll point out that if you get the add-on box, not only will you get those Magician Powers, but you'll also get a 2-player variant called Duel of Magicians. What this does is it gives you some abilities to spice up the 2-player game by giving these random setup cards. This will determine which of those action point slots will be blocked off each round at those various locations. It will also give you these special performance cards, which already have a trick marker kind of grayed out on that slot. That gives you some extra opportunities to set up some tricks and score some links whenever you're setting up your tricks to be performed. So there you go, that's everything you need, and hopefully they'll give you a good start to your first game of Trickerion. So until next time, remember, if you're going to punch them, make sure you play them.